Albert Einstein, the most brilliant mind of the 20th century, once coined a phrase that casino owners have repeated like a mantra for decades to sleep soundly at night. He said that the only way to make money at a roulette table is to steal it while the dealer isn't looking. Einstein was referring to the mathematical impossibility of beating the game through intellect alone. Roulette is the queen of the casino precisely because it is, in theory, a machine of perfect randomness. It has no memory like blackjack, where past cards influence future ones. It has no human strategy like poker, where you can bluff. It is pure, unadulterated chaos. An ivory ball spinning on a polished wooden wheel, subject to friction, gravity, and the unpredictable bounce off metal diamonds. However, on a cold night in March 2004, 3 people walked into London's most exclusive club, the Ritz, and proved Einstein wrong. They weren't armed robbers in balaclavas. They weren't magicians with fast hands hiding chips up their sleeves. They were 2 Serbian men and a Hungarian woman who looked like wealthy tourists enjoying the London nightlife. They sat down, ordered their drinks with total calm, and, over the course of 2 nights, dismantled the security of the most sophisticated casino in the world. They won £1,300,000 sterling, at today's exchange rate a fortune that would set anyone up for life. But the most terrifying thing for the casino wasn't the amount of money they took, it was how they did it. They didn't seem lucky, they seemed to know the future. They placed their bets at the last possible second, just before the dealer said the ritual phrase, "No more bets," and the ball, obedient like a trained pet, fell again and again on the numbers they had covered. The casino called Scotland Yard in panic. The anti-terrorist police and the financial crime squad intervened with the full force of the law. They were arrested, their equipment seized, and their funds frozen. It looked like the end of a high-tech scam gang. But then, the impossible happened. After months of investigation, forensic analysis of their mobile phones, and legal debates at the highest levels of the British government, the judge had to open the cell door and let them out. Not only were they free, they kept all the money. The judge ruled that they hadn't cheated. They had done something that 19th century law didn't know how to classify. They had used a laser and a computer to apply Newtonian physics in real time and hack reality itself. This is the story of the Ritz Gang, the 3 time travelers who forced the British government to rewrite the laws of gambling. To understand the magnitude of the heist, first we must immerse ourselves in the setting. The Ritz Club in London isn't just any casino. It is not a blinking neon hall in Las Vegas full of tourists in shorts and noisy slot machines. The Ritz is the bastion of old European aristocracy and new Arab money. It is located in the basement of the famous Ritz Hotel in Piccadilly, one of the most expensive postcodes on the planet. To enter, you need to be a member. To be a member, you need to be recommended. It is a place where silence is the norm. The carpets are so thick they absorb the sound of footsteps, and crystal chandeliers illuminate mahogany tables where fortunes are gambled in polite whispers. In this atmosphere of exclusivity, security is invisible but omnipresent. John Wooten, the head of security at the Ritz at the time, was an industry veteran. His job was to detect any anomaly in the flow of money. Casinos live on pure statistics. They know exactly how much money they should make every night with decimal precision. If the deviation is too large, if someone wins too often, internal alarms go off. Not audible alarms, but alarms in the minds of experienced men like Wooten. On the night of March 16, 2004, 3 figures crossed the golden threshold. Leading them was Niko Tosa, a stern-looking Croatian Serb with thin-rimmed glasses and an intelligence that could be perceived in his scrutinizing gaze. He was accompanied by Nenad Marjanovic, his business partner, and Livia Pilisi, an elegant Hungarian woman who acted, according to later security theory, as the distraction or camouflage to make the group look less suspicious. They looked like simple businessmen from Eastern Europe, a common profile in London at the time. They went directly to the Carmen Roulette room. It is a private room, away from the eyes of minor players, where the betting limit is much higher. They asked for a table to themselves. This is not unusual for high rollers. They prefer the speed of the game and the intimacy. The dealer spun the wheel. The European roulette wheel has 37 pockets, from 0 to 36. The house edge is 2.7%. It is an immutable mathematical advantage. It means that, in the long run, for every £100 you bet, the casino will mathematically keep £2.70. There is no way to avoid it. Or so the Ritz believed. The game started slow. Tosa and Marjanovic watched with intensity. They didn't bet on every spin, and this was the first thing that caught the attention of the supervisors in the camera room, known in the jargon as the eye in the sky. Most compulsive gamblers bet on every spin out of anxiety to win and adrenaline. These men didn't. They waited. They watched the dealer launch the white ball onto the wooden track. They waited for the ball to make several revolutions, gradually losing speed, and just at the critical moment when centrifugal force begins to yield to gravity and the ball is about to fall toward the central number rotor, they placed their bets. But they didn't bet on a single number. That is a fool's bet with low odds of success. They bet on what are called sectors. They covered a physical zone of the wheel, perhaps 6 or 7 neighboring numbers, and also bet on their corresponding neighbors on the green felt layout. They spread the chips quickly with military precision and coordination, covering a specific arc of the roulette wheel before the dealer closed the betting. And then the magic happened. The ball bounced chaotically on the metal diamonds on the rim, danced down onto the numbers, and landed with astonishing frequency right in the sector they had covered seconds before. They didn't hit the exact number every time, but they didn't need to. By covering the entire sector, if the ball landed on any of those 6 numbers, the payout was 35-1, enough to cover the lost chips and make a massive profit on every winning spin. On the first night, they won £100,000. A good night, thought the Ritz security. Someone got lucky. But they came back the next night, and the next, and luck doesn't work like that. Luck fluctuates. Luck gives and takes. But Niko Tosa's account only went up in a straight line towards the sky. 300,000, 600,000, a million. John Wooten, from the monitor room, started to feel that cold pit in his stomach that professionals feel when they know they are being deceived but don't know how. He rewound the security tapes over and over. He watched them in slow motion, frame by frame. He looked for the obvious. Were they manipulating the wheel physically? No, they never got close enough to touch it. Was the dealer in cahoots with them? No. The casino changed dealers several times, and they kept winning with the new staff. Were they using magnets? Impossible. The ball is ivory or synthetic Teflon. It is not magnetic. Then, Wooten noticed something more subtle: the rhythm. Every time the ball was launched, Niko Tosa or Marjanovic seemed to make an almost imperceptible movement with their hand, or stared down for a second before lunging to bet. Their bets always happened in the exact same time interval, between 3 and 4 seconds after the ball was launched. Why wait? What information were they getting in those 3 crucial seconds that the rest of the world couldn't see? To understand what was happening in the mind and pockets of Niko Tosa, we have to talk about advanced physics. Roulette, despite its mystique of chance and destiny, is a physical object that strictly obeys Newton's laws. If you launch a ball with velocity x onto a surface with friction y, and you know the rotation speed of the wheel z, theoretically you can calculate where it will land. It is not chance, it is a differential equation of motion. The problem is that it is an extremely complex equation. There are variables that constantly change: the tiny microscopic imperfection in the wood, the invisible dust on the track, the millimeter leveling of the table, even the strength of the air conditioning in the room. This is called chaos theory. Small initial variations cause huge and unpredictable final results. That's why the human brain can't predict it. We aren't fast or precise enough. But a computer is. The theory of sector prediction has existed since the 70s. Pioneers like Doyne Farmer and the group known as the Utemans tried to use primitive computers hidden in their shoes to measure the speed of the ball. But in 2004, technology had taken a quantum leap. Mobile phones were no longer heavy bricks. They were starting to have powerful processors and integrated cameras. The hypothesis of the Ritz security, which police experts would later confirm, was fascinating and terrifying at the same time. They suspected that Niko Tosa wasn't using his eyes, he was using a laser scanner. Imagine a device camouflaged inside a normal mobile phone. You point the camera or a hidden laser sensor towards the moving wheel. The laser measures two fundamental things: the exact speed at which the rotor with the numbers is spinning, and the speed at which the ball is traveling in the outer track. The laser takes these measurements in milliseconds. It sends the data to a microcomputer hidden on the player's body. The computer processes the orbital decay equation instantly. It calculates the exact moment the ball will lose enough force to fall, which is called the drop point. And since it knows what position the spinning wheel will be in at that precise future instant, it tells the player via a vibration or an imperceptible earpiece the ball will land in the zero area. The player doesn't need the prediction to be perfect to the millimeter. If the computer says 0, the player bets on 0 and the three numbers to its left and right. He has turned a probability of 1 in 37 into a probability of 1 in 6. With that statistical advantage, the casino is dead. It's like playing heads or tails, knowing that the coin is rigged to land on heads 70% of the time. Niko Tosa and his team had managed to miniaturize a physics lab and put it in the pocket of a designer jacket. They were using 21st century technology to rob a game designed in the 18th century. The second night ended with a resounding success. The trio went to the cage, the armored security window where chips are exchanged. They exchanged mountains of colored plastic for official Ritz bank checks. The total came to £1,300,000. They walked out of the club with the calm of someone leaving the office after a routine workday. There were no celebrations, no shouting, no uncorked champagne, just professional efficiency and silence. But John Wooten had seen enough. He knew no one is that lucky, no one in the history of gambling. He called the Metropolitan Police of London. His report was serious: suspicion of organized fraud and game manipulation. The British police take the integrity of their casinos very seriously. London is a global capital of luxury gambling, and reputation is currency. The Financial Crime Squad launched the operation that same morning. They tracked the trio to their hotel. They weren't staying just anywhere. They were in a nearby 5-star hotel. The police waited. They needed physical evidence. They needed to find the smoking gun. In this case, the device. A few days later, when the trio returned to the casino, committing the eternal error of greed, the police acted. They were detained on the very floor of the Ritz Club, surrounded by plainclothes officers. They were taken to Kensington Police Station for questioning. Simultaneously, a forensic team raided their hotel rooms. What they found confirmed Wooten's suspicions, but also opened a legal Pandora's box that no one expected. They found modified mobile phones. They found laptops with complex data analysis and trajectory software. They found large amounts of cash. For the police, it was an open and shut case. They had them. They had used electronic devices to alter the outcome of the game. Or so they thought. Niko Tosa, Nenad Marjanovic, and Livia Polisi were interrogated for hours. They maintained a stoic silence. They didn't confess, they didn't explain how the system worked, they simply waited for their lawyers with disconcerting calm. They knew something the police didn't know. They knew how to read British laws as well as they read the roulette wheel. The money was frozen. The Ritz breathed a sigh of relief. The threat had been neutralized. The media began to leak the news, speaking of a James Bond-style gang of high-tech and industrial espionage. It was the perfect story for the tabloids. But then, the case hit the desk of the Crown prosecutors. And the prosecutors, upon reviewing the evidence and the current law, began to break into a cold sweat. Here is where the story shifts from a heist movie to a fascinating legal drama. The law regulating gambling in Great Britain in the year 2004 was the Gaming Act of 1845. Yes, you heard that right, 1845. A law written when Queen Victoria had been on the throne for only a few years, when there was no electricity, no telephones, much less lasers or laptops. The 19th century law was very clear in its archaic language. It prohibited interfering with the game. It prohibited altering the mechanism. It prohibited using magnets, strings, tricked mirrors, or colluding with the dealer to slow down the wheel. It defined cheating as changing the physical result of the event. Niko Tosa's lawyers presented a devastatingly simple and brilliant argument to the judge. They said their clients didn't interfere with the roulette wheel at all. They didn't touch the ball, they didn't touch the wheel, they didn't bribe the dealer. The roulette wheel spun freely, and the result was 100% random according to the laws of physics. The only thing their clients did was observe. They used a device to observe better, yes. To process visual information faster, yes. But the lawyers asked, since when is observing a crime? Since when is using math cheating? The argument continued, posing logical dilemmas. If a player has prodigious eyesight and a brain capable of calculating speed mentally like a savant, is it cheating? No, it is considered skill. So, if you use a tool to do the same thing, where is the line? Is it cheating to use glasses if you are nearsighted to see the ball better? Is it cheating to use a hearing aid to hear the ball drop better? The prosecutors desperately searched the law for a section, the famous Section 17, that prohibited the use of external devices. But the law spoke of devices that altered the physical game, not devices that predicted the result passively. The laser scanner didn't push the ball, it didn't slow the wheel, it just read reality. It read reality faster than the human eye, but it didn't change it. The case went up the legal chain of command. Legal experts, judges, and legislators met in closed rooms. The conclusion was humiliating for the British government and terrifying for the casino industry. Under the law of 1845, what the Ritz Gang had done was not illegal. It was, technically, a form of advantage play taken to the extreme. It was no different in the eyes of the law than counting cards in blackjack, which is also not illegal, just frowned upon by casinos who reserve the right to refuse service. On December 5, 2004, after 9 months of investigation and legal battles, Scotland Yard had to issue an official statement, a statement that must have hurt their souls to write and publish. It stated that the case against the 3 suspects had been dismissed, and that it had been determined that there was no realistic prospect of conviction under current legislation. Imagine the face of John Wooden, the head of security at the Ritz. Imagine the face of the casino owners who had lost a fortune. The police had to go to the bank, unfreeze the £1,300,000 and return it entirely to Niko Tosa and his partners. They returned their phones, they returned their computers, and they opened the door for them to leave as free, wealthy, and innocent men. Niko Tosa and his team took a black London taxi and disappeared into the fog, taking the loot from one of the largest and most sophisticated legal heists in history. They never gave interviews, they never bragged on television. They simply vanished, probably to look for other casinos in countries with laws equally ancient and obsolete. The impact of this case was seismic. The British government, embarrassed by the loophole, accelerated the approval of a new law, the Gambling Act of 2005. This new law, written in the 21st century, specifically included a clause prohibiting the use of any external device, computer, or technological aid to analyze or predict the game. They closed the stable door, but the horse had already bolted with the gold and was long gone. Casinos around the world had to upgrade urgently. They changed the roulette wheels. They installed low-profile rotors so that the bounce of the ball would be much more unpredictable and difficult to calculate. They improved their own laser scanners to detect if anyone was using technology against them. The Ritz changed its protocols forever. But the philosophical question persists and makes us uncomfortable. What is truly cheating? If you study hard for an exam, are you cheating? If you train hard for a race, are you cheating? Niko Tosa didn't break the machine. He broke the myth that chance is invincible. He proved that what we call chance is just a lack of information. If you have enough information, chance disappears, and only pure physics remains. There is a theory, never confirmed, that says Tosa didn't even need the laser at the end of his career, that he had trained his brain so much watching thousands of wheels spin that he could see the drop zone with the naked eye, and that the device was just a safety confirmation. Months later, a journalist found Tosa in Croatia and asked him how he did it. Tosa, with an enigmatic smile, told him something that freezes the blood of any casino owner. He He said they are hysterical, that the wheel is just a machine, and that any machine has a rhythm, and he just listens to that rhythm. Maybe he lied, and the technology was vital. Or maybe Niko Tosa was the first human to see the matrix of the game. The Ritz Gang taught us that the line between genius and criminal is often a line drawn arbitrarily by lawyers in wigs in a courtroom. They won because they were smarter than the casino, but above all, they won because they were smarter than the law. They found a crack in the system that no one had seen in 150 years, and through that crack, they pulled out £1 million without firing a single bullet and without forcing a single lock. Today, if you walk into the Ritz in London, you will see that security measures are extreme. They scan you, they watch you, but if you look closely at the roulette wheel, you will see that it is still the same: wood, ivory, and gravity. And there will always be someone in some dark corner of the room staring at the wheel with a hand in their pocket, wondering if maybe, just maybe, physics can beat the house again, because the house always wins, until science walks through the door.